Stories of faith inspire. And I was reading an article around the importance of the stories of faith. And I came across this article of a guy called Charles Chuck Colson. And for those who know their US politics history, Charles Chuck Colson was the legal counsel, the senior counsel during what was known as the Watergate scandal. Which obviously cost a president his tenure, and it cost Charles Colson 7 months in federal prison. And the reason I share this start of this story, because I'm going to touch on it at the end, is it's the story of faith. Because he grew up in an environment where, although we don't really know, it doesn't talk so much about his parents' faith, what we do know is that they were committed to helping out others, those in need. In fact, it says that his father, who was a lawyer, also did a lot of pro bono work for those who are in need, and his mum every Thursday night would go and cook meals for the homeless and for the needy. And so it was an understanding. Yet it talked about the fact that Colson walked away from faith. And it says this in his quote, in his published memoirs, Colson acknowledged that the pursuit of his career and the fame and fortune came with it meant that he would compromise not only any beliefs that he may have, but any sense of personal integrity. And he used this term, he said this, he said, "I would achieve my goal, including the destruction of others, at any cost." I'll leave that with you because I want to touch on it at the end. But why don't we give a huge round of applause to Elliot, Jon, Katie, and Santi, who is going to be doing a translation for us. Come on up, guys. Fantastic. Katie, you can sit closest to me. How about that? Awesome. So good. Wow, I kind of feel far away from you guys. But this is where they put it. These are where the little dots are. So you can hear me all right. No, I'm not going to sit between you. That would be really, really awkward. Hey, it is the stories of testimony today. And if you're in the 8:30, you would have heard the extended version of an interview I did with Elliot. And man, it was inspiring. It was incredible. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to broaden that a little bit and hear 3 different stories. But Elliot, I am going to start with you because we chatted in the earlier service. And I spoke about the fact that you were raised in a Christian family, that you grew up going to church, yet by the age of about 17, 18, you decided that, this was not really for me.
Yeah, I definitely had the foundation of growing up in youth and kids' church and all that sort of thing, but got to a point in life where the world was, church wasn't really that important.
When you say church was that important, was it a fact that maybe, could I say that your faith journey was your parents' faith journey?
Yeah, in a way. It was definitely a Sunday morning thing. It was always, Sunday morning was church morning, so yeah.
All right, let's delve in this a little bit deeper. And because I do these, the reason we tell stories is because my prayer is that somewhere, maybe this is your story, because by the age of 18 or 19, you kind of said, well, actually, church is not for me. Saturday nights with my mates is more for me. I'm not doing this. I'm walking away from, effectively, my faith. Could you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely... It wasn't that I didn't believe, but it wasn't important. I wasn't walking. Yeah.
You still saw mum and dad heading off to church, and your sisters heading off to church, and it was kind of like, I'm going to sleep in, or I've had a big night on Saturday night.
Yep. Yeah, they still went, but I'd be sleeping or doing camping or
Let me ask, did you feel a sense of self-judgment? Did you kind of go, I'm supposed to be there?
Yeah, I knew that I was supposed to be there. Yeah. I think that's where the foundation sort of was quite important growing up in church. You knew that it was good and it was important, but just pushed past that. Yeah.
We talk about a wilderness journey, and I'm going to share with the others about certain aspects of that. But I met you maybe at the tail end of what would have been your wilderness journey, maybe 2 or 3 years where you or 3 or 4 years, I think you said in the other one, where you sort of going, well, church is not for me. I believe in God, but I'm not interested in this faith journey. What was it that brought you back to church? What was it that brought you back to this understanding of maybe I need to recheck out what this faith is?
Yeah, I found myself in a place in life where definitely didn't know who I was. You know, you were starting to figure out, you know, what to do with your life and friends, and we live in a world where there's a lot of influence, so it can be quite confusing sometimes. So, but then I found myself in quite a bit of a hole, but I also found myself too, like searching for it and listening to music, and that sort of, it all stemmed from there, so.
Katie, I'm going to leave you at this for a moment. Katie, you were also raised in church. You were kind of a baby of this church, really, weren't you? I mean, Mum and Dad have been coming for 25 years or so. You're a bit of a baby of this church. But in your own words, your faith was built on your parents' faith as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, when you are brought up in a Christian home, you learn from your parents, you learn who God was, who Jesus was, and all of that. But I never actually got to a point of who Jesus is right now. And so, until now. But back then, it was just built off what my parents said. And I'd go to church with them when they would drive me, and yeah.
So you use the comment, and I've asked these guys if we can go deep on these things, and they've had the courage to be able to say it. The reason they say that is because they want their journey to be able to inspire you on your journey. And Katie, you used the comment to me, you wrote, as we were talking in this, you said, I believed, but I never truly knew the love of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a big statement, eh?
Yeah.
What was it? You believed that there was a God?
Yeah, I believe there was God and that Jesus died on the cross, but I never really thought about what he was doing in my life now. It was more what he did for people back then. So, yeah, I didn't feel the love that Jesus talks about having back then in my life now. So it was, yeah.
So let's break this down a little bit. So to you, the Bible was kind of a historical thing that happened to people back then, but in the 21st century, maybe it's not as relevant as it is for me today?
I think so. Yeah, that's definitely what I believed.
Was there pressure from, if Mum and Dad are in the room, is there pressure from Mum and Dad to, hey, come on, we're off to church?
I think they definitely helped me make my own decision, but I did feel the pressure that I didn't want to let them down and that God was real and they knew his love. So, like, how could I walk away when I could see their faith?
Was it the same for you, Elliot? Did you feel like, am I letting down Mum and Dad as well?
Yeah, especially when, you know, they weren't too happy that you weren't coming along, but, you know, in hindsight, you can see now that the importance of it, and they've also walked a longer journey too, so, and I don't think we as kids will ever understand a parent's love as well when it comes to that. So I had to learn that, yeah.
Break that down a little bit.
The parent's love?
Yeah.
Well,
they're in the room, it's okay.
They always obviously want what's best for you and can see that, you know, they might have walked a certain journey in the earlier years. And then to see you, their child, walking it as well can be quite hard. So, yeah, a bit of pressure from it.
Awesome. John, I'm going to throw across to you, and Santi is going to translate for you. But John, tell us about your growing up. Did you grow up in a area where there was faith in your life?
Good morning. Yo soy de Colombia. Aproximadamente, pues, nací en un hogar católico.
John's from Colombia and he was raised in a Catholic home.
Aproximadamente cuando yo tenía unos 14 años, 15 años más o menos, mi mamá fue la primera vez que fue a una iglesia cristiana, fue sana de la columna.
Going to a Christian church happened at around the age, Christian Pentecostal church happened going at around 15.
Tell me what was it like in your family environment growing up? And just setting a basis, what was it like? Were you expected to be in church with your family?
No había exigencia, la verdad. Primero pues fue mi mamá a la iglesia, luego fue mi papá, una cadena, luego mi hermana y finalmente fui yo, pero nunca me dijeron tiene que ir o no, simplemente
There's never a you must go to church. It was first my mother that went to church, then my father, then my brother, then my sister, sorry, and then I ended up going to church. There was never a pressure to go to church.
fue una necesidad mía más que
It
todo.
was a personal need in my world that took me there.
I wanted to all three of you, I want to talk about idols. I preached on the danger of idols last week, but sometimes there is unseen idols of the world. Elliot, you talked about the fact of Saturday night with your mates, maybe partying, camping, doing those things. Did that become a substitute for God in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's where you in a way found your happiness and your joy was hanging out with mates and that sort of thing, and you didn't really. I wasn't finding that in church, so yeah, definitely.
Katie, again, your words that you spoke to me, you said in your late teens you started to idolize the things of the world. You said that you were even on the worship team here at the time, but you felt to step away because you sensed that really the life you were living wasn't reflecting what you were ministering.
Yeah, definitely. Like Elliot said, influences in the world. You've got peer pressures, things like that. And I just wanted to feel loved. I just wanted to feel some sort of acceptance. And that was a tangible thing, going out, partying, drinking, all of those kind of things were tangible, but they were only momentary.
So let me I want to just stay on this point for a minute because you were both maybe 18, 19 around this time, but it doesn't have to be at 18, 19, right? I mean, we can experience these things at 30 or 40 or wherever it may be on our journey. For both of you, it was this period of time. I asked Elliot this, did he kind of feel this self-judgment or, that he placed upon himself when you were away, when you were in your wilderness moment on your faith journey? Katie, did you kind of feel a judgment or just go, nah, I don't care about it?
I just tried to push it out, really. I definitely felt judgment and shame and all of those things, but I just had to pretend like it wasn't real or tell myself that I still believed in God and I was a good person, so that's what mattered.
And so that was enough? I
Yeah.
believe in God. That's cool. I'm a good person.
For a while.
I'm helping elderly ladies across the road, that sort of thing.
For a while, that was it, yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Elliot? Were you I'm a good person, I'm doing well,
Yeah, deep down you definitely know that it's not. Like, you're pretty hard on yourself and you know that. I think that's where the foundation came in was I knew that the life that you're living was not one of, everlasting happiness, but just momentary, I was more in it for a good time than, yeah.
John, you were a late teenager when you started going to a faith-filled church. What was that experience like for you?
Ok, fue bonito, la verdad. Sentía como una comunidad, como lo que se siente aquí.
It was very beautiful, actually. He goes, I felt community.
You felt what?
He felt community.
Talk
in the
about that.
church.
What did that feel like? Because it wasn't a common thing for you. Unlike these guys who were every week there, this was different for you. Tell us what you felt like at the time.
No, me sentí realmente bien, a gusto. Sentía que Dios me llamaba en ese momento.
He felt really, really good, and he just kept feeling like the call from God to come to church.
John, I want to talk about a certain moment. You were in Colombia at the time, and you felt a stirring on your heart to move somewhere, whether it was Australia or Canada. And there's a photo that I think we've got of you when you were praying, and suddenly you looked up and there was the Australia flag above you. Tell us about that story.
Sí, ok, bueno, yo me congregaba en Bogotá, en el Centro Mundial de Avivamiento, una iglesia cristiana.
So John was part of a church in Bogota.
Ahí aprendí a tener una relación cercana con Dios.
That's where he really experienced having a relationship with God.
De hecho, hubo un momento en el que, bueno, yo estaba en mi casa, estaba orando y de repente Dios me hizo sentir su presencia, descendió del cielo.
To the point where he remembers vividly a day that he was at home and he was praying and he just felt the presence of God come into the room and he just succumbed to it.
Sentí su amor en ese momento.
He felt the love of God, the one that
Es un
you've
amor
talked about.
incondicional, increíble. No quería salir de la presencia de Dios en ese
And he
momento.
goes, I just didn't want to leave that presence. It was overwhelming.
So John, I'll talk about this in a minute. Had you ever felt that love, that community, when you were growing up with your football mates or your school? Had you ever felt that anywhere else?
No.
We
Nunca.
don't have to translate that. That was no.
No.
So what was different about being in this environment? Like, I say this because the reality is in this room, we are all on a faith journey. We're all at different stages on a faith journey. You're a new Christian coming into this. So how did they embrace you where you're at? How did they meet you where you're at on your faith journey?
Bueno, fue un proceso bonito porque me rodeé de personas de fe.
It was a real beautiful process. I was surrounded by a lot of people of faith.
Nunca fui tras, bueno, en Colombia decimos vicios como alcohol o algo así. Siempre
So
fue,
there were never, he goes, I never went after any vices like alcohol, drugs, or anything like that.
siempre fue adorar a Dios. Teníamos en común que era alabar a Dios.
There was just one common thing amongst the people he surrounded himself with, which was worshiping God.
So let me talk about this. This was in church, and this is a big step. You're a Bogota boy, a Colombian boy, and your whole world is about to change. And you're potentially going, you're like saying, God, I'm placing my life in your hands. Use me. And you were standing underneath the Australia flag.
Okay. Bueno, previo a la foto, yo estaba orando para saber dónde ir. Principalmente, yo quería Canadá.
Prior to the photo, I was praying for knowledge as to where to go, and my heart was set on Canada, but the thought of Australia was there.
En oración, cuando yo nombré Australia, su presencia fue gloriosa.
And whilst praying that day, when he named Australia, he just felt an overwhelming presence again.
Y bueno, después de eso, el viernes, que fue el día de la foto, yo estaba, al final del servicio, le estaba diciendo al Señor que me confirmara.
And then on the Friday night when that photo was taken, he was in church again and he was like, okay, Lord, I need you to confirm what you're saying to me.
Y yo tenía los ojos cerrados mirando al cielo.
He was with his eyes closed, worshiping, looking up.
Y en ese momento yo le dije, confírmame, los abrí.
He said, confirm it. He opened them.
Y lo primero que vi fue la bandera de Australia. Que es
And
la
the
que
first
está.
thing he saw was the Australian flag.
Come on, awesome. However, I want to go a little bit further here because who knows that our faith journey has many hurdles and many times that we get to a fork in the road and we think, awesome, God, you've answered me. I'm on a faith journey. I'm going to Australia. Yet there's a little thing called an English proficiency test.
Sí, yo estaba, bueno, mi nivel de inglés no es bueno todavía y aún en Bogotá era terrible.
He says, my English isn't great now, but it was even worse back in Bogota.
La agencia me dijo que tenía que hacer un test de inglés.
The agency had called him and let him know that he needed to do a proficiency exam.
Me dijeron que la siguiente semana te van a llamar. Me dijeron
And they
así.
said they'll make a phone call to you next week.
Pero resulta que ese día me llamaron en la noche.
But
Fue
they called
sorpresa.
him that night. Surprise.
So you weren't ready for this and
No.
your English was no good.
No.
That's no.
Y sobrenaturalmente entendí todo, hablé,
and supernaturally he understood everything and spoke and answered all the questions.
So this, let me stop here, yeah. This is a big deal, guys. This is a big deal. So I've heard this story, I've sat with John with this. So he's doing this English proficiency test where he needs to get to Australia. He stood under a flag saying, God, you must be in this, right? But who knows, at our faith journey, it's kind of like, it's not like all of a sudden there's this big open door. Sometimes it's kind of like seeming like we've got to go through spot. And then all of a sudden they ring him days early for a proficiency test that he wasn't ready for. Yet what you're saying to me is the song we sung says, God is more than able. So you Holy Spirit starts speaking and hearing everything they're saying, and then we're speaking in effectively fluent English back to them.
Sí, por supuesto. No hay otra explicación.
Yeah, there's no other explanation.
Right? Come on. That's pretty awesome, right? God is more than able. Our worship team just sung that to us, where that situation, I can imagine your phone call, John, when you're receiving this phone call thinking, I'm not ready, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go to Australia. And then suddenly, Holy Spirit just starts moving and you get the big tick.
Sí, absolutamente. La verdad fue una sorpresa porque no me esperaba la llamada.
Yes, it was total surprise. I wasn't expecting the call the same night they told me about the test.
Pero comencé a hablar y entendí.
But I started to speak and I understood everything.
Al final le di gracias a Dios porque finalmente.
And at the end of the call,
no
I
fui
just
yo.
gave God thanks.
Come on, awesome. God is more than able, right? Elliot, I met you when you were re-engaging back into church world. What was that? Why did you feel a sense to come back into the gathering?
It was a place of love. It was like you're welcome, you're accepted. When you're walking a bit of a lonely walk, we're not meant to be on our own. We're meant to be around community. And that's what it was. It was the community.
Now, I had the privilege to be able to meet you then and to walk alongside you then. You're, in your own terms, would be, I don't like using labels, but in your own terms, you're a quiet, introverted type of guy. And then even when I met you, it was just at your sort of journey at a slow pace. Let's fast forward about a year. All of a sudden, you're leading our youth team of 16 to 18-year-olds and then running a connect group for young adults. I mean, this was a guy who had been in a wilderness. What's going on here?
Yeah, when you know what it's like to walk on your own, and then to now know what it's like to walk with people and also to walk alongside Jesus, why wouldn't you want to share that? I think we're called to share it. Yeah.
Did you feel a sense of going, especially with those 16 to 18-year-olds going, I've been there, I've been on this part of the faith journey, I want to help them now so they maybe don't make the same mistakes I did?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, learning from people who have walked before you is a very, like mentors and that sort of thing, is a very good place to be able to have. And so if you can create that for other people, then yeah, it's going to benefit them for sure.
I'm going to get you to in a minute, Katie, because you've got a pretty cool story. But let's go forward again with this. That's okay. It's kind of you're back in church, you're serving, you're tithing, you're doing these sort of things. But then you felt a prompting that actually I need to take my faith further. I need to take steps further with this. And fast forward that and you end up in Africa doing water wells in Africa because you're a plumber by trade. What's going on here?
Oh, who knows? Yeah, look, it's funny, when I'd found myself back in church, and I think this is the way that God was working, he because I was in such a bit of a dark place, I wanted to run away. And for some reason, I Googled mission trips, and within 2 weeks, I had an opportunity to go, and I jumped on it. And then that's blows it wide open.
So we talked in the earlier service. As a large church, I get a lot of people coming to me saying, "Hey, can we get on board with these things?" And there's lots of great things out there. But what grabbed me about this so much was not only the obvious physical water for these people. I mean, this is in Tanzania where you were, the photos up there, where sometimes, generally the females would walk up to 10 kilometres to get physical water, where we go to a tap and we turn it on. But what really got me was the fact of the living water. Is it not, you go into a village and you give them physical water and then you preach the gospel to them, right?
Yeah, so it opens the door to sharing the gospel, and they're going to accept water either way. But it also shows that you put your faith in God; He will provide, and they gravitate towards it. You know.
But here's a guy 3 years earlier was out of church in your wilderness time, and here you are now over preaching the gospel. Preaching the gospel is not standing here. Preaching the gospel to Africans in a village, and you're seeing lives transformed, right? You're seeing people give their lives to Jesus.
Yeah. I said this in the 8:30, but I learned a pretty valuable lesson when it came to my relationship with God, and that's never say you're not good enough, because He will put you in positions to make you uncomfortable and to grow you. So that's what it was. You know, I was always a pretty quiet kid and never liked, microphones, but here we are.
I'm gonna stay on you for 30 more seconds because it's kind of cool, right? And I kind of feel like it's one of those ones where you take these steps and God says, I'm more than able to take you even further, because let's say you came from a fairly conservative background in that, and then all of a sudden you've gone across there. Not only were you seeing lives transformed, but you were seeing physical healings happening in front of you. You were seeing people getting delivered from evil spirits and witchcraft.
Yeah.
Did this just blow your mind?
Oh yeah, it's pretty. You have to take a little bit of time just to process it all, but their society is so stripped back and raw that they see it, that there is either good or bad. There is, we live in a very blessed society where we have, doctors and medical access and all that sort of thing, but for them, they don't. And so they either go to the local minister or in the local town and get equipped, or they go to the local witch doctor, and that's never a good idea. So, yeah, it's very much in your face, but it's also very powerful too, because there's freedom in Jesus. So, and that's what you've got to show him. Yeah.
This is kind of like expanding your faith, right? This is like, if I'm diving in the deep end now, because you're heading back in 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
We as a church support this. There's actually a table out there. I encourage you, go and chat to them, because this is not just about physical water. This is about lives being transformed right across Africa. And it is amazing through many people, don't get me wrong, but through a young man who claims himself to be an introvert, who has stepped in his faith journey to go, I'm going to jump on a plane, I'm going to do this, I'm going to preach the gospel to village guys over there, I'm going to be part of seeing healings done and seeing people set free from evil spirits. That's faith in action, right? Come on. Katie, October in 2022, I started getting this undeniable sense in my spirit around the return of prodigals. And I really kind of didn't know your story, but here you were, walked away from church. You still believed in God. You still understood God. But in reality, you kind of said, well, that faith journey, I'm going to put it on pause. I'm going to chase the idols of the world. I'm going to chase the love of the world. Let's say those sort of things there. But God kept nudging you, saying there was something else there, right?
Yeah. Through different ways, I hid my Bible. And
you physically hid it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I was
That's
like,
cool.
I don't want that. Because every time I opened it, I just knew that the life I was living was not right. And I just wasn't ready for it. I was telling myself I wasn't ready for it.
Wow.
And so quite often I would feel, go get your Bible. And so sometimes I would. And every time I opened it, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go back, but I can't. And the other way was through one of my cousins.
Can I ask one thing? You say you couldn't go back. Was that because you felt, honest question, did you feel that others would judge you?
Probably a bit of that, but also I knew other people felt God's love. So I was scared because I knew it was going to be it. Like, once I find God's love, that's it. There's no more of this. So I was like, oh, I don't know if I
Wow.
can give it up.
Yeah, and then your cousin?
My cousin was constantly reaching out to me and asking me to come along to church, and I didn't want to let her down, so I would sometimes come along and hear what was happening, and yeah.
Talk to me about, because at the same time, I'm praying for prodigals. Not believing, but I journaled it. I'm praying for prodigals. Tell me about Easter Saturday. And I find this a fascinating story because in the Easter story of Good Friday and Sunday, we celebrate, but Saturday's silent. It's Silent Saturday, yet in Silent Saturday, God spoke to you in an amazing way, right?
Yeah. So I was in a relationship with a non-Christian, and for a while, like I said, I was feeling from God that I needed to leave, and I was getting scriptures and all of these different things, and I was saying, God, I'm not ready, give me more time. But it was Easter Saturday, and I had never felt or heard God's voice so clearly that this was the moment that he was giving me to get out. So I was scared, but I did it.
Come on.
Came to church the next day.
You came to church on Easter Sunday?
Easter Sunday, and resurrendered my life.
Yeah. And I kind of remember that time because it was a pretty emotional time, right?
Yeah.
What did that feel like when you had been away, you had chased the story of the prodigal, you had chased the wonders of the world and all of these things. And this is not me talking about the wonders of the world out there, but it was the fact that you had prioritized them over God, right? What was that like on Easter Sunday when you're just feeling, I'm home?
I honestly cannot really explain it, because I felt as soon as I entered those doors, everything that I had been searching for in the world, the love and the acceptance, I felt as I came in. So when that altar call happened and I went up, I can't explain it. It was just freedom, and it was everything I'd been searching for years.
Yeah, awesome. But just like John, who had a Holy Spirit moment, like Elliot, who's going, there's more to it than this. I'm actually going off to Africa. I'm doing these things. You then said, well, actually, I'm going to enroll in Academy. So you did Academy 2023?
Yeah.
Last year, you did Academy. Yeah. And I think there's a photo of you that we've pulled out. You don't even know what photo it is, do you? But I think there's we've got a photo of, here's a photo. Not only are you being on stage worshiping, because that was a comfortable space, but have a look at the bottom ones, you're preaching. You were standing here preaching the gospel, right here on stage. How did that feel, a girl, the prodigal daughter, who had walked away standing here preaching the gospel?
When I came back, I just knew that I needed to get back into it. I'm sure there are so many other people who have been in situations like I have, so I just wanted to minister what God had done in my life to others. I love singing, so when I left, like Shaun said, that I left the worship team because I wasn't living a life that reflected it. I knew I had to be back. Like, I just couldn't contain it. Speaking is not something that I love, so that was definitely a challenge. But yeah, I'm just so glad that this is where I am.
Yeah, we're pretty glad too. We're pretty glad too. John, final question to you. What do you say to somebody who doesn't know their next step, who is concerned with their next step?
Sin duda, preguntarle a Dios
Without a doubt, ask God
que Él lo guíe, porque Dios habla.
for his guidance, because God does speak.
And things are not perfect now, right? But God is in control.
Sí, exacto.
Yeah,
Ahora,
exactly.
ahora por lo menos, bueno, después de que cada persona ora, le pide a Dios, Dios obra de alguna forma.
After each person prays, God starts to move. We just don't know how.
Awesome. Elliot, God is more than able to take a disenchanted 20-year-old and put him in the plains of Africa and serving in church here what do you say to those who are going, I'm just comfortable in my faith?
Get uncomfortable.
Say it a bit louder so people hear.
Get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we can get a bit hung up on what, you know, your calling and what my purpose is. And I'll just say this, the day you accept Jesus is the day you're called. So just step out and be obedient and see where he takes you.
Come on. Preach the gospel, man. And Katie, final one for you. Prodigals. It's deep on my heart. To those maybe who are listening online, who have walked away and are feeling a sense inside themselves that I'm not worthy to go back, that I've got a judgment, I need to hide my Bible, whatever that is. What are you saying to the prodigals?
What was the reason that Jesus died on the cross? Like, he died to take all of our sin and our shame, our disease, all of that. And that's, who cares what you've done? God doesn't care as long as you surrender to him. So, yeah.
Awesome. Hey, why don't you give these guys a round of applause?